how you doing? This is Mitch from Hard Intentions YouTube channel. You know, we also have hardintentions.com where we sell t-shirts, prints of my artwork, and other items that we're getting ready to promote and sell. So if you are so inclined to pick up a t-shirt or some artwork, check us out on hardintentions.com. You know, I do want to thank everybody who watches our channel, everyone who subscribed. You put us over the top, man. I just, you know, and everyone who participates in our Wednesday night and Saturday night live shows, you know, thank you. The last one we had last Saturday was fun. So I just want to thank you. And, you know, I want to thank everybody who watches and supports us, man. I just think it's great. And thank you. So, you know, my last story, I left off where I was on my way to Soledad, but you know, before I get there, you know, it was refreshing getting to Soledad actually, because I mean, they didn't have any hobby or anything, but the people were different. Like, you know, my last trip through CMF, man, I worked in the kitchen. I talked about that, and you know, there was a guy in there, man, who was he was a dope fiend, man. He was a skinny ass white dude, dope fiend, pillhead, and his source of income was stealing out of the kitchen, and you know, guys in the back of the kitchen would send food out through the front, and he'd snag it and act like he didn't know nothing about it, and it's kind of shady because some guys had a little hustle going. You know, he snaked on them. But the one time I really got pissed off was, you know, when I saw this guy. I used to go to work early and help make the trays for Ad Sig, and you know, we set up serving line. I'd go in and clean the scullery out, wash all the trays for dinner, and you know, and then we do the Ad Sig trays, and you have Ad Sig trays for the nuts and Ad Sig for regular guys, you know. And so, like when they had hamburgers, you know, you get a slice of cheese, and it was good cheese. So I noticed this guy was taking cheese off the trays and putting it in a stack on the side. Because they slide the tray down, they put a piece of paper on top of it, and then another tray on top of that, and a piece that's like wax paper. And they stack the trays and they put them in the cart. And he would take the cheese off and put a piece of paper on. He was real slick about it. You know, he was real quick with it. And I saw him doing it, and I said, "Hey, motherfucker, you know, what are you doing? You know, you're taking that cheese, man. I mean, you know, these guys are in the hole." "Oh, you know," he said, I just do it to the nut wings." I said, no, man. You don't do that shit no more. You know, I said, the rest of these fucking trays, man, they get cheese, and the rest of the trays got cheese, you know. And this dude had stacked fuck cheese like this, man. And he was taking it back to the wing and selling it for, you know, yard ducats. And then he was buying pills or whatever the fuck he was with this ducats. And after we got done making the trays that night, I said, "Hey, check this out, man. If I catch you doing that shit again, I'm going to kill you." I said, "Them dudes are in the hole. That's all they got to look forward to is their next meal." He tried to whitewash it by saying, "Oh, he just did it to the guys that were nuts." I said, "Man, I don't give a fuck who you do it to. You don't rob motherfucker of his food. You don't rob someone of their food, you know, period. I don't care who they are. You know, if you don't like someone, beat them down, stick a hole in them, but you don't take their food, you know." And so something happened where he was gone for about a month. He had a medical issue, and he came back to work, and I didn't say anything, you know. I just let him go back to work. Same thing, I saw him doing it, man. He was stealing tortillas, because when they had Mexican food, they give you a couple tortillas on each tray, and he was taking the tortillas. Dude, I stacked like this of tortillas, man. And I said, "Hey, dude, what'd I tell you?" And oh, you know, and he kind of, I said, "Man, I told you, man." So when we got done serving, you know, I didn't say nothing. I caught him in the chow hall. You got to remember now, no one's in the chow halls except the workers, and the cops are off in the office. So I went up to the dude and grabbed him by the throat, man, and slammed him against the wall. And he just kind of, he was just standing there like this. And once again, a black guy on the side was like, "You knocked him out. You knocked him out." You know, and he was standing there on his feet. I just held him by the throat until he came to. You know, so it wouldn't fall over. But and when he came to, I said, "Hey, man, get a job change, or I'm gonna stab you." And he got a job change. But that mentality, stealing another guy's food like that, you know, I mean, we're down for stealing food out of the back, you know, taking whatever's left over at the end of the night. All that shit was cool, but not taking food off somebody's tray. That shit's not cool. Because I've experienced myself, you know, sitting in the hole and getting a shitty tray made by some asshole, you know. It sucked. So, and they were doing the same shit in San Quentin, you know. Level 2 fucking assholes ripping people off of their food, guys, because they made all the death row trays there, and they were pinching their food. I know they were. I mean, I didn't see it, but I know. And so when I got to Soledad, man, I was just they had pretty much the same menu statewide, because the menu comes out of Sacramento now, but the food quality was a lot better, and the quantity was, you know, you got what you had coming. And it was old school, you know. Soledad Central was full of lifers. They call it a lifer graveyard. So there were guys I hadn't seen in 10, 15, 20 years. They had been in Soledad that long. And so I was glad to see them, and I was really glad to get some decent chow. You know, I had a homeboy there working at chow hall, you know. He'd bring home burritos or, you know, whatever kind of stuff they could slop together at the end of the night with the leftover food. You know, there was sugar. Guys are peeling sugar out of the chow hall, out of the kitchen, and bringing it back. So there was a little hustle going on. It was old school, you know. Soledad was a good pin. You know, they got old school cells. You got a window in your cell, and I ended up moving to F wing, and my cell looked out over the yard, and I could see the mountains and in between the coast and the valley there. I don't know what they call it. That's not the Central Valley. That's like the Coastal Valley, Monterey. It goes from Monterey up, you know, on the coast. It's nice. And it was nice being in Soledad. They had taken the hobby away, though. You know, prior to me getting there, some guys got in trouble. They got caught with contraband. And I guess the squad got at him and told me, you know, just say you got it in the hobby, and we'll give you a pass. And the guy said, yeah, I got it through hobby, which was a lie. So they used that to shut down the hobby shop. So that was kind of messed up. You could get paper in your package. So I was getting watercolor paper from the package company. I was painting on that. I got some. The guy actually, Danny Rivera, taught me how to paint. He had some leftover paint, you know, from they still had hobby, and you know, he was always good at hoarding up art supplies. And he's the guy that taught me how to paint. I showed him some of my work photographs and everything, and some of my pencil drawings I had. And so he loaded me up with some acrylics and some oil paint, and I got some turpentine from the paint shop, and I did some paintings when I was there. I actually did the Living Dead Girl shirt in pencil that we just produced, and some of my other shirt patterns that we might go with. I did there at Soledad. But I did them in pencil, colored pencil. You know, I did the British Bulldog Triumph. You know, I did that there in acrylic. Yeah, so it was good. It was really good to see Danny. I hadn't seen him since 1996, and here it is 2011. So it'd been a while since I saw him, and I told him my adventures, you know, through Lancaster and Arts and Corrections and San Quentin, all these different places I've been, and what a struggle it was to continue doing my art and all that stuff. And he was, you know, he was glad to see me. I was glad to see him. You know, he's an older man now, but yeah, he was still caught up in his art, man, and he was thrilled to see that I took it to a level, you know, that on the same level he was on, basically. Danny was a hell of an artist and a hell of a guy. So he loaded me up, and I was able to do my art. And you know what? Because the art supplies were limited, I just kind of cruised through. Normally I would just bang out art, but I didn't have enough supplies to do that, so I just took my time, and I painted a few motorcycle pieces that have since been lost. But you know, at least I got to do them, right? And so you know, Soledad was kind of weird, man. I mean, right before I got there, they busted a cop bringing in whatever you wanted. Basically, if your money was fat, you know, you could pay this cop whatever he was asking. He'd bring in basically whatever you wanted. And so the cops had just, this happened right before I got there, so they had busted this guy, fired him, and you know, I'm sure he ratted on a lot of people that he was working with. Guys were in the hole. Excuse me. There were still some guys in the hole, the main dudes, you know, the money guys that had people on the street with money that would pay this guy whatever he wanted. They were in the hole, and some of them started getting out after I got there, but the cops were still going around tearing shit up, man, and they were putting in new lighting systems in the cells, and I guess some dudes had, you know, pounds of weed in their fucking lights. You know, tobacco was just, it was just off the hook, man. And what happens when you got a guy doing that is everybody, you know, finds out about it, and then, you know, the wrong guy finds out about it and tells. So you know, the cops are still looking for cell phones, still looking for tobacco, you know, and I had a smuggling tobacco beef, so they were on me for a minute, and then they realized, hey, I told me I'm done with that shit, you know, and they realized I was, and they backed up off me. But yeah, I had some good homeboys there from Lakeside and San Diego, so it was cool. Excuse me. You know, the canteen in Soledad is hard to get into, and they had dudes that would work with the cop at the canteen. It'd be like at $5, $10, you know. Dude wasn't white, so obviously the white dudes had to pay more to get first in line or get into the canteen, period, because sometimes you go out to that yard, man, you stay out there by that canteen all day, and you wouldn't get into the canteen. So guys were willing to pay this dude, you know, whatever he wanted to get in there. And this dude was a Mexican cat, you know, Chicano dude, but he was kind of weird. You know, they didn't really like him, and I guess he got beat down or stabbed or something when they hit that dude's pad to roll up his shit, man. He had a laundry cart full of food, you know, shit that he'd been, you know, extorting out of people. And then some white dude got the spot, you know, helping the card, you know, collecting the cards for guys to give the cop to get guys in the canteen. So the price went down to just about nothing for me to get into the canteen, and it was cool, you know. The homeboys could hang out on the yard, we'd eat ice cream together, and walk laps, and we had Peckerwood Flats, and right next to that they just put in a vineyard. So they tore out an orchard and put in a vineyard, and that's where I got valley fever. And I mean, I was in there, you know, a month, and I had a cellie who was from Hanford, and he goes, hey bro, you got valley fever? And I was like, nah, I'm cool, you know, I just got a cold. And they ended up transferring him, but before he left, he goes, hey bro, I'm telling you, you got valley fever. You know, he was from that area, and sure enough, I did. I lost 60 pounds in 2 months, man. I almost died. But you know, that was the one bad experience I had there. You know, that was an anything goes kind of pen, really. I mean, as long as you didn't violate the rules. It was a mainline pen full of lifers that have been down forever, man. They had Southerners there, they had Bulldogs there, white dudes, black dudes, you know, from all over. That was the make, and they were playing softball, football, soccer, all that kind of stuff. And guys would cut out little patches of grass on the yard and cultivate the dirt, and they'd grow cilantro. Some spots they grow onions, garlic, tomatoes, whatever they could get away with on the yard. You know, cops let them get away with it unless they got too carried away, you know. And that's the kind of stuff you could take into your cell and kind of fatten up your soup or your prison meal, you know, whatever kind of meat you could snag out of the kitchen, and you know, throw in your spread and a little creature comfort, you know. That was kind of cool. But yeah, there was a lot of dudes there that were kind of weird too. What I did like about Soledad, man, is you could go out and get on that phone, just stand in line like, hey, I'm next, and you could get on the phone like that. It was pretty cool. The whites had like 6 phones. Everyone had like 6 phones, you know. And I think the blacks had like 12 because there was a lot more of them. But there was never any problem with phones or any of that shit. But you know, I remember one time, man, we had this dude Radar. He was a tier tender in my building. He was a straight up fucking dope fiend, man. and always had some scandalous shit going on. And I came out one day, man, that dude had a big fucking black eye. And I don't remember exactly what the deal was, man, but somebody lit him up. And my wing officer was this Mexican cat. He was a youngster. He was all tattooed. And he's actually the guy that got me into T-shirts. He says, anyway, he saw a radar. He goes, hey, come here, man. He goes, take your sunglasses off. And he took them off. He saw that big old fucking shiner. And he goes, go to your fucking cell, man. Don't let anybody see that. Because he heard that Radar got disciplined for some stupid shit he was doing. So in that regard, it was kind of old school. If there was a fight, guys got away with it. Nobody was hurt too bad. The cops didn't really give a fuck. You could go to the back of the first tier where the day room was the first tier. Guys are tattooing a little bit, guys are smoking, standard shit goes on in prison. But there was one dude, man, he lived in another wing across the hallway, white dude. I thought he was Mexican. He ran with the Southsider dudes, and he would tattoo on them, and that was his pill hustle. He was a pill head, and so he was tattooing on these dudes, and then he's like, hey man, where's my shit? I want my pills. Well, these dudes are youngsters. These dudes ain't older cats, they're young guys. They want to get all tattooed back, and he's like, hey, where's my fucking pills? He kept sweating them, so they beat him down, and they beat him up pretty bad. And I guess the dude was on a gurney in the hallway, man. Someone saw him just kind of writhing in pain, like, oh, and he was telling them, man, he was in the hallway for like, an hour on a gurney, and he told him, man, I'm fucked up, I don't feel right, this pain ain't normal. And then he told me, I feel like I'm gonna die, and sure enough, he died. I guess it busted his spleen open and a bunch of shit. So you had all these kids, they busted like 5 of them, they took them to the hole, and sure enough, tough guys, some of them started telling, because all them dudes are going to get a murder beef. Doesn't matter which guy actually, they were all involved, so with staff, they all got charged with murder. And right away, a couple of them started telling, guys are in there for, 2-3 years. It's a level 2. These guys are going home in a year, 2 years, 4 years. Now they're facing a murder beef, which is a life sentence. And they're living in a prison full of guys that got life sentences that been down 20, 30, 40 years. So they're looking at that, and they're thinking, man, I don't want to do that. So they start telling. And that's true life shit. And then everybody was like, hey man, what are we gonna do about this? And I was like, man, I didn't even know that dude was white. He ran with them dudes. So that's pretty much what everybody said. I didn't know that dude was even white. So anyway, we got slammed, and all the tough guys come out, they locked up some dudes, white dudes, and this is how it went. Guys are riding kites in the wing across the way where it happened. It's like, yeah, when we come out, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. So they're sending these kites around, 1 or 2 guys, saying, hey, we're going to stab, kill, riot, all that shit, right? You're telling dudes that are going home, same scenario, a year, 2 years, 4 years, these are level 2 guys. And then you're telling guys that are lifers that have been down 20, 30 years, you're going to stab and kill. All these dudes already been there and done that. They're over it. They're just living. No one was getting out at the time, so they're just kind of living out their life. Actually, guys were starting to get out at that time. That was 2011. And that actually happened in 2012, I think. But so they're like, hey man, fuck that. So somebody told on old boy for sending them kites around. We lived in the wing across the way, me and my buddy Terry, and he's like, hey, you hear what happened this, you hear what happened that, because Terry would come out and pass out the food, When you're on lockdown in Soledad, they bring the chow carts to the wing, lay out tables on the first tier, and just start making trays and run them up. And my partner Terry would bring me extra trays or leftover food, and then he's got a little movement, and he's telling me what's going on. I'm like, wow, all right. And then in the wing down the way, these guys are yelling out their window. Well, before they start yelling out their window, they ran up like a $2,000 or $3,000 debt for heroin, speed, whatever they could get, right? And then they start yelling out their window, yeah, when we come out, we're gonna kill this, kill that. They're not riding kites, they're yelling out their window. Really? So everyone on your wing can hear it on this side, and people can hear you out your door, and guys in the wing across the way, they can hear it because their windows face yours. So they lock those guys up too. I mean, you know, you think motherfuckers in prison don't rat, you're out of your mind. That's a mainline prison. It's just as bad as in SNY, except for guys in SNY, I guess they're known as being informants, so, you know. So yeah, it was the one big drama thing that happened when I was there, was that dude died. I didn't dig it, you know, but there were guys that wanted to come out and jump on some of these older Mexican guys and kick off a riot, and I was like, hey, you know, I'm not with that shit. Of course, if it happens, I'm white and I gotta be in it. But me and Terry and a couple other guys just would go out and walk laps while all these fucking lames would walk around and try to instigate shit. And sure enough, all them dudes trying to instigate shit, they all got locked up. Because that's how it works. When you try to tell someone, hey, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, these dudes feel like their lives are threatened. You know, dudes die in riots, dudes get stabbed, beat, shot by the gun tower, so they go tell. And that's how it works. You know, I've been in a few riots, I've been stabbed, I've been shot, so I don't really give a fuck. And my mentality was still pretty much, hey, I'm never getting out, so I didn't really give a fuck. But you know, I wasn't going to instigate it. I was kind of the mindset, if something happens, I'm there. If not, fucking whatever. You know, I was busy walking the track and doing my thing. So after a while, that blew over. And when they unlocked there, they would bring out like the 55 and older guys. Then they bring out the 50 and older. And then the 45 and older. And then the 40. They worked their way down to the young guys. You know, and you know, there was no repercussions. As a matter of fact, some of the older Southsider dudes came and told the white dudes, hey man, you know, we didn't know that was going to happen, and we're sorry. And you know, they're like, hey, they're real apologetic, like, hey, you know, it was fucked up. And you know, them youngsters are, a couple guys said, hey, you know, them youngsters are going to pay for that later on. So whether or not they did, I don't know. I know a couple of them told right away. So yeah, that was that. But I met some cool cats there, man. There was a couple motorcycle rider dudes, a couple guys in bike clubs, you know, and just some regular biker dudes. And they had Peckerwood Flats there where all the white dudes hung out, man. And like in the summertime, like when we come up off that lockdown, they had a water box. It's got a key, stick it in there, and we just turned it on, let it flood the whole area, probably like 50 feet by 30 feet. Of grass, it just flooded. It was brown when we come out off that lockdown, but after about a week, man, of flooding that yard, it was nice and green. And you know, the program at Soledad is real restricted, you know, so you know, we'd go out the yard and we shower in the yard in a hose. You know, we strip down butt naked or get down to our boxers. They didn't really give a shit. And you know, get wet with a hose. It was cold, soap up, rinse off, and go in. That was your shower right there in the garden hose on the yard. Yeah, that was cool. That was fun. And I did have some dummy for a fucking celly. You know, he was getting tobacco and dope, and I told him, hey dude, don't be bringing that fucking drama here, you know. And he's like, well, you know, what should I do? And he was talking about burning these guys, and I knew one of the dudes he owed money to. I didn't really like him, and he's like, you know, I'm just gonna tell him this, tell him that. I'm gonna burn him. I said, hey, look, man, whatever the fuck you're gonna do, go do it. If you're gonna burn them dudes, go tell them they're burned, you know. And what's he do? He goes out to the yard and tells me, man, Smiley said I should just burn you, and that's not what I told him. And so he was there, they were there, and I told them what was happening, and they just looked at him like, because they knew me from other prisons, and they knew if I said something, it was true, you know. But yeah, I had a good time there, man. Anyways, that dummy ended up paroling, came right back to prison. He wasn't out 2 months, man. Yeah, my good friend Jeff from Cocoa County was there, and he had 3 strikes. I've been knowing him for fucking couple decades, you know, and he got out under Prop 36, and hopefully he's still out. Yeah, it was cool. Soledad was cool, man. They ran a good program there, other than getting valley fever there, and that dude dying. It was a pretty smooth program, really. There was no outstanding issues there that I could really talk about. There's no big drama. It was actually a pretty drama-free prison, you know. But yeah. And then while we're there, my friend Terry's from Sac, so he's like, "Hey brother, they're making Tracy a level 2, and why don't we go back to Tracy?" He goes, "You liked it in Tracy, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I liked it in Tracy." He said, "Well, let's go, man. Let's sign up." And I told him, "Fuck it. Where do we sign up at?" And we'll talk about that on our next installation of Hard Intentions. Just remember, folks, whatever it is you do out there, do it hard. Don't fuck around. Thank you. I'll catch you on the next one.